It is a pipe, a perforated pipe, and the concept is that the water percolates down into the pipe. The bottom of it is solid, and the water is on a gradient so that the water will drain to an outlet, usually a storm ditch. And then there will be a fabric filter around it to prevent erosion, and there will also be what they're calling drain rock, or a type of aggregate, in order to enhance infiltration into the tile and then backfilled with soil. Here's a tile drainage system where we have what they call a header tile, which is a main tile draining down, so it would be on a gradient in the ground, and there are feeder tiles which are feeding into the main tile system, and then they come to a T-junction at the bottom, and then it is released into a drainage channel. Here they have a nice water flow with cattails along it. Along my street it is a bare culvert, and whenever cattails are in there, the municipal works comes in and dredges it out. Here's an aerial view showing a wetland area that has been drained, and the blue is outlining the constructed drain, and it is actually crossing over the road, but it would be releasing itself into a culvert by the road as well. And if you ever take a look at an air photo agricultural area, it's very interesting because you will see a lot of horizontal lines that do not quite go with the topography of the area, and that's due to the agricultural drains. This is a drain that's been installed in Minnesota, and they actually won an award for this because it was contouring with the land. Didn't win an award for draining the land. So the logic in this is that by drawing out the land, you can get in there and plant earlier, you can harvest later, especially in areas like the city of Kawartha Lakes where we have so much clay. We don't have to wait as long for the clay to dry out, so thereby we are lengthening the growing season. The next one, little diagram in the bottom, you can see how the root zone has been increased. Initially the water table is quite high. After the drain has been installed, usually they go down about 3-4 feet, the water table is lowered so the roots can grow deeper. The roots become better ventilated. They also can anchor better, and they're also decreasing the amount of erosion. Soil bacteria can grow better on the rhizomes of the roots. Organic salts are leached from the soil. In other words, they're leached down into the water table. They're not maintained in the soil. And what is considered a bonus to agriculture is the fact that the soil temperatures are increased. Now, this may not be considered a plus to those that are in disagreement with global warming occurring. Now, in Ontario, the Drainage Act looks at 3 mechanisms by which drains can be approved. And these are the 3: mutual agreement drains, petition drains, and requisition drains. The mutual agreement drain applies to 2 owners, and in this example I have Smith and Brown sharing a wetland property, and they would both like to have the wetland drained. So in the mutual agreement drain, just as it sounds, they are in mutual agreement. So all that has to be done is to draw up an agreement, and in the agreement they have to describe the land that's affected in legal terms, describe where the drains are going to be, and detail how they're going to share the expenses. This agreement is then registered on title, which means it's attached to the deeds of all the properties involved. Now, the kicker is that this is binding on future landowners. So if somebody buys one of these properties in the future and decides that they like the idea of a wetland and want it on their property, they can't go ahead and stop draining it. They are bound to the agreement. And not only that, they still have to continue paying into the expenses. The only way to stop a mutual agreement drain would be to have everyone mutually agree to cease the effort. In this example, I have a petition drain, and please excuse my attempt at freehand. In this example, I have 3 landowners. Smith, Brown, and Jones. And the dividing line between Brown and Jones is this diagonal line. And you can see that the majority of the property is owned, between Brown and Jones. Now let's say Smith wants to drain it, Brown wants to drain it, Jones doesn't. All they have to do is get a petition drawn up. And in the petition, they have to have the majority of names of the owners holding 60% of the acreage, or a majority of names of other owners in the area. So even if one of the owners has more than 60%, they can still go around the neighborhood and get everybody to sign it. And another insult to injury is the fact that the person or the party that did not want to pay for the drainage initially still has to pay for it, because under the guise of the Drainage Act, they are said to be benefiting from the drainage. There is no definition of an environmental benefit in the Drainage Act. The only way you are said to be benefiting is when the water is drained from the property and it can then be developed. A requisition drain is, well, basically Plan C. Let's say you want to drain, you can't get everybody else to mutually agree to it. You can't get enough signatures on your petition. So you go ahead to the municipality and you make an application. And all you have to do is put in a $500 deposit, and that calls for a municipal engineer to come out and look at the feasibility of a drain being constructed. You don't have to notify the affected landowners, in other words, other people owning the wetland, and there is no environmental impact study required. The word environment doesn't exist in this thing. It was written in 1949, and like I said, it hasn't been amended since. If there is a group that would like an environmental assessment done or an environmental impact study, a group or wetland owner, whoever requests it has to pay for it. Nice, eh? So in summary, the concerns with the Drainage Act is that there is no concern about the importance of wetlands at all. And I'm sure you've gone over this with Mark. They are a storage area for floodwaters. It acts like a sponge. It holds water during wet periods. It slowly recharges it during a drought, filters contaminants, and it's a host for ecological diversity. Also, the right is given to drain without looking at any downstream results. And the province and municipalities subsidize funds for drainage. And below is a link to a page on the City of Kawartha Lakes where it discusses loans that are given out to farmers for draining their property. Got you upset yet? So just what I mentioned earlier, in terms of benefits, the land is said to benefit if the land value will increase as a result of the drainage. They consider the fact that it's drained, you can go ahead and build on it. And it's the onus on the land is on the landowner to prove that the land is not benefited. So by showing that you are now a host of ecological diversity, you are reducing the flood impact, that doesn't count. And if you're benefiting, you have to pay for it. Now looking on the political side, in 2010, the report came out in 2011, Commissioner Gordon Miller came out with a study through the Environmental Bill of Rights criticizing the Drainage Act, and he had a number of scenarios that he used as an example, and a couple of sites and government decisions. And what's interesting is the response from the MNR, which basically said, we don't care what you have to say with Mr. Miller, we're not going to revise our drainage laws. And unfortunately, the only power that the Environmental Bill of Rights has is, to quote someone from their group, outing a group, outing them. So they cannot